Hey, it's Nick from Lawless Films. Today I'm going to be ranking the 2024 Best Picture nominees. Each year I rank the Best Picture nominees, and this year is no exception. It was a great year for film, and I can't wait to get into it. But before I do, please do me a favor and like this video, and don't forget to subscribe so you stay up to date on all new upcoming content. Let's first break down the different tiers. The bottom tier is the nah tier. Basically, I think these films don't belong in the category. Then there's the meh, I get it tier. These are the films that I understand why they are nominated in the category, but I didn't resonate with them and they didn't affect me in a strong way. The next tier on the list is the hey, I liked it tier. These are the films that I very much enjoyed watching. And lastly, there's the best picture worthy tier. These are the films that I think are worthy of the Best Picture prize. Major spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't seen these films. So let's just get right into it. Number 10, the only film on the nah tier is Barbie. Before I say my piece, I want to say the two positives I found from the film, which are the production design of Barbie Land and Margot Robbie's performance, which I think she does an actually really good job as Barbie. Other than that, I did not care for the film Barbie. To start with the obvious, the movie itself is, and certainly feels like at parts, a 2-hour-long commercial for Mattel. As a result, the film feels like it was being filtered through a conglomerate's approval despite Greta Gerwig's unique voice, and had less of an organic spark. It's the only nominee I didn't think had a cohesive film. I felt like the story didn't really gel. Barbie being depressed because America Ferrera imagined it, so Barbie and Ken have to leave fictional Barbie land and go to the real world where Ken discovers sexism. Then he's able to brainwash all the other Barbies for some reason, who then snap out of it once Barbie talks to them for some reason. The Mattel bosses want to catch Barbie, but they don't reappear until randomly at the end in Barbie Land, and they're ultimately inconsequential to the plot. The film simplifies and separates people into silos. The whole experience felt so weird. I understand that America Ferrera's speech wasn't directed at me, but did it not feel off to anyone else? I didn't connect to it. I wasn't supposed to, I guess. My entire theater cheered at that part. It felt too much like a public service announcement, and I wish they gave America Ferrera's character a larger backstory so she can bring up her own journey during the speech. Ryan Gosling's performance was okay, nothing special in my opinion. I liked Greta Gerwig's other films, Lady Bird and Little Woman, more than Barbie by a mile. Lastly, the worst part about Barbie is the message at the end of the film. All Ken wants the entire movie is to have a friendship with Barbie, and the film ends with Barbie deciding she doesn't want to be around Ken and that's okay because he's, quote, knuff. But the problem is Ken doesn't feel knuff. Ken wants companionship. Ken wants a sense of community. And to end the movie that's supposedly about empowerment so bitterly uninspiring makes this film easily the worst Best Picture nominee and the only film on the nah tier. Barbie is my least favorite of the 2024 Best Picture nominees, and I'm genuinely sorry if that upsets you. We've now moved on to the meh, I get it tier. These are the films that I understand why they are in the category, but for me, it didn't really connect. It didn't really have a strong emotional connection to the film. And I felt like these films play some tricks that I don't really appreciate in films, and we can talk about them in a second. At number 9 on the 2024 Best Picture ranking, and the first film on the meh, I get it tier, is American Fiction. Aside from Barbie, American Fiction is probably the movie that feels the most fun and relaxing. The film is about Jeffrey Wright's character, who is a professor and writer who is also sick of black writers in America being typecast into writing about being from, quote, the hood. He creates a false name and persona to create a book with more urban sensibilities while attempting to maintain his lie. He has to take care of his mother after the recent death of his sister, while also reconnecting and mending the relationship with his brother, played by Sterling K. Brown, in addition to being in a relationship with the woman across the street. There is a certain amount of levity in the humor that makes the film stand out. I probably have less to say about this movie more than the other films because this film felt most like your typical weekend flick you plan to see, but this one is really good. The film has a fun, entertaining premise while also delivering on an efficiently written script. What I found interesting was that there was one moment while Jeffrey Wright's character initially starts writing the book, he imagines the characters acting out the scenes he's writing in his living room. I thought that was an interesting addition since that was the only time in the film a sequence like that occurs. I also thought the ending was entertaining by having Jeffrey Wright list the possible ways the film could have ended, but it would have been nice to see a more standard ending that I feel would be a better fit for a straight up story like American Fiction. This film felt pretty safe and standard with very good actors. The only reason this isn't higher is because I think the gravity of the other stories, as well as the tone and the mise-en-scène, elevates the other films to a level that a safe film like American Fiction can't meet. American Fiction was a really fun movie, and I don't want my placement on my list to suggest that I didn't think that. The 8th film on the 2024 Best Picture ranking, and the next film on the meh, I get it tier, is Maestro. Maestro is this year's Best Picture nominee that everyone loves to hate, and I totally understand everyone's frustration with the film, myself included. Bradley Cooper writes, directs, and stars in this biopic about Leonard Bernstein, the world-famous composer. The film tracks his life from his first big break to the few years after his wife, played by Carey Mulligan, passes away. Bradley Cooper gets creative as the director, as there are a number of tonal shifts between the periods of his life. He decides to start as an old Leonard Bernstein and transitions into a flashback in black and white where everything, including the performances, feel old-fashioned 1940s gin pop kind of vibe. He composes music, he meets his wife, and there's a fun little tap dance number. His life later continues and the film transitions to color. I'm not sure if there was a significant moment that signified the color transition. It kinda just happened to me. Their marriage becomes difficult because Bernstein is a closeted gay man, although everyone we interact with in the film sort of knows that already, including his daughter, who eventually catches on. Cooper and Mulligan have a great one-take scene of them fighting while Snoopy and the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade goes on outside the window. Things took a turn when his wife is diagnosed with cancer and he has to take care of her. After she passes, he attempts to live the remainder of his life teaching music and going out with some of his male students. So that's Maestro, and everyone hates it, and I'll tell you why. It's mainly the tonal and thematic shifts in the film. It feels like Bradley Cooper is attempting so hard to throw everything into this movie, and it feels more like a vehicle to show off his acting and directing chops. There is less thematic cohesion in this film. Bradley Cooper is like, it's the 40s now, let me act like an actor in the 1940s and throw in some tap dance. Then he goes, it's the 70s, let me throw in a whole bunch of stuff that makes it feel like the 70s. He also lingers on the death of Carey Mulligan a little too long, and it turns into the entire third act of the film. It felt like Bradley Cooper was literally just trying stuff, and don't get me wrong, I liked a lot of what he did in terms of acting and shot composition, but those scenes work better as standalone scenes than when they're all put together in the same film. Bradley Cooper throws a lot into Maestro, and I think you should check it out yourself to see whether or not it works. The 7th film on the 2024 Best Picture ranking is Zone of Interest. I wanted to put this film higher on the list, but I couldn't. Similar to how I felt about Tar last year, Zone of Interest has the least technical or structural flaws out of all the Best Picture nominees. However, I mainly have it so low because of the film's lack of focus, repetitious themes, and the absence or intentional absence of emotional connection. The film is about the Zone of Interest, which is just outside the Auschwitz Nazi concentration camp during World War II. The film is about a Nazi family that lives there. The film focuses on them enjoying their pleasure garden and building a home for their kids, while in the background you see smoke from a smokestack of the concentration camp. The filmmaker basically beats you over the head with the idea that these people are so horrible because they are looking so passively at the concentration camp and turning a blind eye to the atrocities that the Nazis are committing to the Jews. The mother casually talks about taking dead people's clothes, and the mother also goes out of her way to treat the Jewish housekeeper cruelly. There isn't much of a plot so much as it is an examination of these types of characters and documenting the space that they are in. The closest semblance to a plot is when the Nazi officer husband is being transferred and the wife pleads for the rest of the family to stay while he goes away to work. There is also a small subplot of one of the children stealing apples and hiding them for the Jewish prisoners, who are then caught and reprimanded both off screen. Jonathan Glazer was clearly attempting to create a different kind of film from what the other directors in Best Picture did. The other nominees tried to tell a straight up story from start to finish. For Zone of Interest, it's more of an artistic interpretation of characters and space. The addition of shots of flowers and also filling the screen with the color red to create symbolism as well as a specific feeling or tone. But the distance the camera and the story have between us and the characters made it difficult to grab onto and care about what was happening to them. The ending of the film repeats the same themes because as the Nazi officer takes time walking down the stairs, he is sick, and then it cuts to the shoes of the dead Jewish people at the Holocaust Museum. Thus, the filmmaker telling us that there is a sickness in their soul from the atrocities they've committed, even if they don't realize it. However, we've established that point several times throughout the film. This film tries to tell a story that many people are familiar with differently by going out of its way to defy expectations. There are no visuals of the concentration camp or Jewish people being killed or tormented, yet it continually happens throughout the film, which is interesting, but the idea can only go so far. The film attempted to be highbrow and succeeded in some parts while falling flat the majority of the film. The Zone of Interest was initially lower on my list, but it's a film that makes you think, and the more you think about it, the more you can appreciate from the film. We've now moved on to the I liked it tier. These are the films that I really liked, but I don't think they meet the Best Picture worthy tier, because I feel like if either of these films win, I'll enjoy that a film that I think is really good won. However, I think the other films in the category hit a certain level that these films don't, and that's why I like the films, but I don't think they're worthy of Best Picture. So with that being said, let's go on to the sixth film in the 2024 Best Picture ranking, which is The Holdovers. The Holdovers is a very good film that has a recognizable premise that's executed to near perfection. It's about this kid, Angus, who attends an all-boys boarding school. They have their own dorms and wear school uniforms. The students are worried about their classes, but they are more excited about winter break. One of their professors is played by Paul Giamatti, who comes off as a tight-ass lonely man who goes an extra length to be a hard teacher and smug to students he believes are slacking. Winter break is about to start, but Angus's mom decides to call Angus to say that her and her boyfriend, or maybe stepfather, I forget the specifics of the relationship, are vacationing during winter break. So Angus has to be left with the Holdovers, which are a group of students who are staying at school during winter break under the supervision of Paul Giamatti. Angus and Paul have an adversarial relationship when Paul's rules clash with Angus's reeling emotions and his desire to have a shred of fun. However, when one of the holdovers is able to get his dad to bring the rest of the students skiing, Angus's mom doesn't pick up the phone, so him and Paul are stuck alone together. But that's when they start to see eye to eye. Paul starts to understand the struggles of Angus after learning about the mental health of his father, and Angus sees the history behind Paul's unhappiness. However, the standout performance from this picture is Divine Joy Randolph, who is the cook at the boarding school, but is struggling to cope over her son's death. Seeing her journey and her performance throughout the film was my personal favorite part about the film, and she's probably a shoo-in for the Oscar, knock on wood. But there are a lot of things to like about this film. Even though this is Angus and Paul's story, I think the main character of the holdovers is the snow. The snow on the ground fits so nicely with the mise-en-scène. The whiteness envelops the screen and makes for fantastic compositions. I love the way Alexander Payne executed the direction and style of the film. It's the simplest concept of the student-teacher relationship that the writer David Hemmingson really dissects. This film is fantastically directed, has great performances, and a heart of gold. It's not higher because I felt like the drama and scale of the next 5 films is just more impressive. Watch The Holdovers. You'll probably like it. The Holdovers is a very sweet film, and I think it has the best acting chemistry out of all the Best Picture nominees. At number 5 on the 2024 Best Picture ranking is Killers of the Flower Moon. Killers of the Flower Moon is a long 3-hour and 26-minute dark drama about the systematic murder of the Oklahoma Osage Native Americans in order to receive their land rights for oil through marriages. The film stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Lily Gladstone and is written and directed and produced by Martin Scorsese, who adapted the novel. DiCaprio is Ernest Burkhart, and he conspires with his uncle, played by Robert De Niro, to marry Lily Gladstone's character Molly, thus inheriting the land that her family owns. More white men start marrying Native American women, and things get ugly when Molly's sisters start to be murdered. The killings are happening, but they all seem to be getting away with it with no consequences, resulting in the suffering of the natives. Molly tries to do something and heads to Washington, D.C. to ask for help. De Niro tells Ernest to drug Molly by spiking her insulin medicine so that she's unable to continue to take action. This unfortunately sidelines Lily's character for the rest of the film. The killings keep continuing, and it gets to a point where Washington sends Jesse Plemons to investigate the murders. Him and his team start investigating, and it doesn't take them long to blame Ernest. Ernest is charged and given an ultimatum whether to tell the truth about his uncle or continue siding with the people trying to kill the natives for their wealth. Ernest is about to confess when lawyer Brendan Fraser intervenes and convinces him not to. But when Ernest and Molly's daughter dies from whooping cough, Ernest throws De Niro under the bus. Molly asks Ernest if he drugged her insulin medication. His silence is all the answer she needs, and she walks away. The film concludes with an old-fashioned radio broadcast and performance recited by Martin Scorsese himself that explains what happened to all the characters. I was personally stunned that a 3.5-hour movie still needs the director to show up on screen at the end of the film to give cliff notes rather than showing us an ending. I thought the performances in this film were spectacular, especially Lily Gladstone, who is the film's best chance at receiving an Oscar. Leo is also really good in the film, but I think people are turned off by how unlikable his character is. Granted, Leo played Calvin Candy in Django Unchained, an utterly horrible person, but that character had a certain charm and charisma and flair that made the audience comfortable with his evilness. In Killers of the Flower Moon, Ernest is unlikable in an icky, sad kind of way. I thought Robert De Niro gave one of his best performances in years. I thought Ernest's brother, Byron, was extremely underdeveloped considering how integral he is to the plot of the film. I hated that Ernest drugged Molly because that sidelined the best character in the film. She doesn't get anything to do after that besides mourning her child in a fantastically acted scene. The production design and direction were great, which is a given in a Martin Scorsese film. I do feel, however, that the color palette of the film could be a little less muted and gray. But time to address the biggest complaint of the film, which is the 3 hour and 26 minute runtime. Long 3.5 hour movies are some of the best films of all time. For example, Lawrence of Arabia, Gone with the Wind, The Godfather Part 2. Because of the epic nature of the film, their lively colors, and some of the best production design, set pieces, action, and interpersonal drama you could ask for. I'm not saying Killers of the Flower Moon doesn't have that, but it does have it to a far lesser degree, thus making people antsy in their seats, wanting to leave in the third act. The colors are a little too muted. A lot of the action happens off screen, or they show a split second of it. The interpersonal drama doesn't really happen because Molly is incapacitated. So the bad people just get to do bad things the entire movie, and Scorsese could have added a more epic touch to the film with more sprawling landscape shots so that we really feel like we're in Oklahoma. And the conclusion kind of feels like a thud with no dramatic resonance to contemplate as you're walking out of the theater. However, I plainly like this film more than The Holdovers because I like the story slightly more, and I like how there are multiple dynamic relationships between different characters. Killers of the Flower Moon is a very intense, dark drama, but I don't think it justifies the 3.5 hour runtime. We've now moved on to the Best Picture worthy tier. These are the films that I think are worthy of the Best Picture Oscar. Starting in at the bottom of the Best Picture worthy tier, and the fourth film on the 2024 Best Picture ranking is Oppenheimer. What is undoubtedly the guaranteed Best Picture winner is my fourth place film. Oppenheimer is about J. Robert Oppenheimer, the scientist behind the Manhattan Project and the atomic bomb. The film is a biography, and the film jumps back and forth between the through line of Oppenheimer's life, which is in color, and the congressional approval hearing of Louis Strauss, which is in black and white. It starts with Oppenheimer in university studying. When his teacher is needlessly hurtful to Oppenheimer, Oppenheimer poisons the teacher's apple, but quickly regrets it and throws the apple in the trash before it's mistakenly eaten by Niels Bohr, an idol of Oppenheimer's. The poisoning of the apple never actually happened. Christopher Nolan was attempting some sort of Adam and Eve forbidden fruit metaphor. Niels Bohr inspires Oppenheimer to think outside the box when it comes to quantum mechanics. Oppenheimer goes to the US, where he teaches at Cal. Oppenheimer creates controversy for his socialist/communist sympathies. He goes to communist gatherings and parties while identifying as a socialist. That's where he meets Florence Pugh, a lover of his. He tries to unionize the math department at Cal, which gets him in trouble at school. Oppenheimer's politics are also a major concern for the US government, as they send Matt Damon to recruit Oppenheimer for the Manhattan Project, while still having concerns about his politics. He meets his wife Emily Blunt, and they go through marital and parenting problems. Oppenheimer decides to set up operations at Los Alamos because him and his brother would go camping there. It's later revealed that Florence Pugh's character commits suicide. The US gathers all the scientists that Oppenheimer needs, including Edward Teller, who suggested using hydrogen as a catalyst to create a larger explosion. Oppenheimer does go to New Jersey to seek the advice of Albert Einstein, with the concerns of the bomb ending the entire world. Oppenheimer eases the concerns the other scientists have about the morality about using a weapon of mass destruction. They test the bomb in a big sequence that kinda acts like the climax of the film, even though there's nearly an entire hour of aftermath from the bomb. Once the bomb is completed, Oppenheimer feels like he has less control about the destiny of the bomb. Lewis Strauss calls Oppenheimer into a meeting where he reveals that the Soviets are working on a bomb and suspects that there was a spy in Los Alamos, despite Oppenheimer's denial of such. It's later revealed that there was a spy. Oppenheimer embraces his new stardom only briefly before being riddled with guilt. He speaks with President Truman, while Oppenheimer suggests giving Los Alamos back to the Native Americans. Truman wants to ramp up Los Alamos to continue the Cold War with the Soviet Union. Lewis Strauss begins a systematic character assassination of Oppenheimer, which, after countless scenes of Oppenheimer being interrogated throughout the film, which results in his security clearance being revoked. Emily Blunt has been suspicious of Strauss, and when she is interrogated, she calmly owns the empty suits, trying to trap Oppenheimer in a lie. At Strauss's hearing, David Hill testifies to Strauss's cruel treatment of Oppenheimer, which results in Congress rejecting Strauss for a cabinet position. Oppenheimer remained in Princeton, New Jersey with his wife as they tried to live the rest of their lives. He speaks to Einstein that he fears that he potentially ended the world in the near future, as Christopher Nolan cuts to a bunch of bombs and nukes going off, highlighting the reality that the atomic and hydrogen bombs still have a very real potential of nuclear apocalypse. This movie is great. Many people are calling it Christopher Nolan's best film, and while I don't think Oppenheimer is in Nolan's top 3 films, it's certainly in his top 5. What impressed me the most about the film is the pacing. I felt captivated throughout the entire film. Nolan doesn't linger on scenes too much. He might have lingered too much on the whole interrogation sequence, but that's intercut throughout the film. You never forget about the stakes. The film was long, but not too long. The acting was very good, especially Cillian Murphy, who gives a great performance. Robert Downey Jr. gives a great performance and will probably win the Oscar. Emily Blunt also delivers as well. I also want to say I love Ben Sadfi's performance in the film. I think he is an incredibly talented actor. The cinematography, especially in the black and white parts, was such a joy. Plus, getting to see the film in 70mm is an absolute pleasure. The best part is the sequence where they test the bomb. The pacing is so good in that scene that I'm jealous of Nolan's talent. Nolan is a lock for Best Director, and it's been a long time coming. The film is great. Great. It'll probably win Best Picture, and if it does, I think so far it will be the best picture of the 2020s. Oppenheimer is winning Best Picture this year, and that's okay because it's a very good movie. Number 3 on the 2024 Best Picture ranking is Poor Things. Yorgos Lanthimos is a very interesting director with a unique style. The film stars Bella Baxter, played by Emma Stone, who gives probably the best performance she's ever given. Bella is a woman who jumped off a ship, but Willem Dafoe is able to reuse her body and insert the brain of a child into her. He animates her back to life like Frankenstein, but with the mind of a child. Willem Dafoe hires the assistance of Rami Youssef to help with his experiments. Bella quickly realizes that masturbating and sex feel really good. Bella is seduced by Mark Ruffalo and agrees to go on a trip with him, to Dafoe and Rami's disappointment. Bella and Mark Ruffalo have a ton of sex. Bella wants to keep going, but Ruffalo explains that men can't keep going, to her surprise. Bella's curiosity charms Ruffalo, but to a degree, as she tries to make friends and is curious when he wants her all to himself. Bella meets a couple that she finds interesting. The man of the couple explains to Bella that the world is a cruel place and then shows her poor people in the slums, and she was terrified. She decides to take all of Mark Ruffalo's gambling winnings and give it away. Ruffalo is furious at Bella for doing this. They are thrown off the ship for not having enough money, and Bella breaks up with Ruffalo and decides to work as a prostitute. As a sex worker, she meets all kinds of men and has sex with them. She realizes sometimes sex doesn't feel good or isn't as magical. She also realizes that sometimes she is not in the mood for sex or doesn't find the man interesting. Ramy Youssef and Willem Dafoe have a new pupil that they inserted a child's brain into, but she's just not Bella. Ramy finds Ruffalo after Ruffalo tried to win Bella back and reveals her location. Ramy writes to Bella and Bella comes home to marry him. At their wedding, they are confronted by Ruffalo and Bella's, or should I say, Vanessa's former husband. Ruffalo tracked down Bella's husband before she tried to kill herself. Bella agrees to be with her former husband out of curiosity, but her husband is insanely cruel and wants to remove her clitoris. Bella shoots her former husband in the foot and returns to Ramy Youssef to say goodbye to her father, Willem Dafoe, who passes away due to illness. The film ends with Bella proudly living her best life with Ramy, her sex worker friend, and her former husband that they put a brain of a goat into. This film is kooky in the best possible way. The world Yorgos created is so enriched. Yorgos, like many filmmakers this year, uses black and white and color in the film. The cinematography was very impressive. The colorful cast of characters are the most interesting cast of characters out of all the nominees, which is probably why I have it slightly above Oppenheimer. And the third act doesn't drag as well. It's a film about sex, and that's always fun because oftentimes we are conditioned to not have sex in film, which gets really boring after a while. The sex in the film was exciting, fun, and creative. The costumes are so complex, you can spend minutes visually digesting one outfit. Everyone acts their asses off in the film, especially Dafoe, Ruffalo, and Stone. This is Emma Stone's best performance, and she has a chance at an Oscar. This film is a one-of-a-kind film. The uniqueness of Poor Things is its strongest asset. Poor Things is a fantastically unique film, and if you didn't already think Emma Stone was an incredible actress, you certainly do now. The second place film on the 2024 Best Picture ranking is Anatomy of a Fall. This film was really close to being my favorite film of the year. The film is about Sandra Hüller, who is a German mother living with her visually challenged son and French husband in the French country. Hüller is being interviewed by a woman who comes to the house. Once the interview just starts to kick off, Hüller's husband blasts an instrumental of 50 Cent in the club, totally drowning out the dialogue of the interview. The woman leaves and Hüller and the husband have an argument. Later, their visually challenged son goes out exploring with their dog. When he returns to the cabin house, there is blood all over the snow and his father is lying face down in the snow. The kid screams and Hüller runs out on the balcony and appears shocked at the sight. She quickly consoles her son and calls the authorities. Hüller and the boy are questioned. Hüller claims that she's innocent and didn't kill her husband, but that doesn't stop the speculation by the authorities, who couldn't explain how the father accidentally died on his own. They try reenacting the events of the day and use computer mock-ups to get a full forensic analysis. Eventually, Hüller is obligated to retain a lawyer as she will be charged by the French over suspicion of murder. The trial commences, and it's interesting to see just how much more laissez-faire the French courtrooms are as opposed to the US, which are usually totally over the top and completely inaccurate in film. And I wonder if the French feel similar about this film. The prosecution makes its case by setting a narrative and calling witnesses, including the woman conducting the interview. Hueller makes her case in court, and her lawyer is very sympathetic to her and gets very close to flirting, but you can tell that he too has a twinkle of suspicion. It gets to the point where the case falls down to the testimony of the son, who is being cared for by a caretaker so as not to have a conflict of interest by being watched over by Hueller. Hueller wants to be with her son, but it's awkward with the caretaker around. The son is conflicted because he doesn't know the truth, but the caretaker hints at making your own truth or picking what you think is the best truth out of the options. On the stand, the son reveals that his father was talking about the potential of their dog passing away and that we need to be prepared for the people that we love in our lives to be gone, which can be interpreted as suicidal thoughts. Hueller is found not guilty and spends the night celebrating with her legal team. She returns home to her son and then lays down on the sofa to rest. It's still unclear whether or not she committed the crime. This film feels clever and special. I hear someone compare it to a long Law and Order episode, but I disagree because Law and Order sucks with cheap drama and corny acting and follows a blueprint. This film doesn't have a blueprint of what each scene needs to be. The drama is nuanced and realistic, and we get to know and peel back the layers of actually interesting characters with phenomenal acting. The shooting location was very impressive, and I love the contrast between the red blood and the white snow. Sandra Hüller's performance is, dare I say, my personal favorite performance nominated for Best Actress. The entire film rests on being engrossed by her performance, so you can enjoy speculating on her actions. You're constantly focused into the film because you want to know the truth yourself. Justine Triet is really a director I need to pay more attention to because I thought this film was electric. My favorite performance in this film is the dog. The dog was great. Anatomy of a Fall is an incredible film with a fantastic director. I highly recommend Anatomy of a Fall. It was very close to being my favorite film of the year, but there's one film that I think is slightly better. My personal favorite Best Picture nominee of the 2024 Oscars is Past Lives. The film is about a South Korean girl moving from Korea to Canada and eventually the United States as a kid, leaving behind the boy that she spent time with. Many years pass and they are reconnected through Facebook. They briefly have chats online, but things eventually don't work out as Nora is busy writing and Hae Sung is busy moving to China, and their lives appear to get in the way of their relationship yet again. Nora suggests that they stop talking for a while, but several more years have passed, and Hae Sung has the chance to meet Nora in New York City. He chats with his friends about what she'll be like. During the years apart, Nora connects with an American guy, Arthur. Hae Sung and Nora meet in the city and connect, and they go on a boat ride where they reminisce and talk about their lives. Later, Nora, Arthur, and Hae Sung go out for drinks, which now brings us back to the opening shot of the film. Nora and Hae speak in Korean in front of Arthur, and Nora brings up the concept of past lives and how what would have happened if their futures were different and she never left. The film ends with the three returning to the apartment. Hae Sung catches an Uber and Nora cries herself to the door for being so wrought with emotion. This film felt special instantly from the first shot. Director Celine Song did a fantastic job delving into the little idiosyncrasies of each moment. It's interesting to note that Celine Song wrote this script based on personal experience, as this is loosely based off of her real life. It felt so tender and warm. You see Nora, and you can tell her passion transported her back to the time when they were kids. This movie makes you really think about the people who come in and out of your life. We all have people that we've known very well, and now we don't see at all. This film really focuses on that experience. The performances are so nuanced. Greta Lee does a great job commanding the screen, and it's all done thanks to the incredibly talented Celine Song. It's my opinion that the lead actress female director combo that was snubbed at the Oscars wasn't Margot Robbie and Greta Gerwig, but actually Greta Lee and Celine Song. So take all the energy you have from Barbie snubs and then shift them over to Past Lives. It's honestly amazing that this film is only nominated for writing and picture. This movie deserves all of the Oscars it could possibly get, and if you haven't seen Past Lives, please go see it. That's my ranking of the 2024 Best Picture nominees, but how would you rank the films? Go ahead and give me your ranking in the comments down below, and do me a favor and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you stay up to date on all new upcoming content. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.